Okay, folks, it is 4:30. We're going to go ahead and get right started so we can get through this. We had a relatively short agenda, I think, today, but let's go ahead and get started. We'll start with our roll call, starting with Thomas.
Thomas Dewhurst, member.
David DeBack, member.
John Cruiser, member.
Tressa Greshak, member.
David Benak, chair.
Rachel Yondel, member.
Steve Romanelli, member.
Thank you. We now will jump into it. We have an agenda that was provided to everyone via email. If I can get a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll send the motion. Let's adopt it.
And seconded.
Very good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The next item is to handle the minutes. Minutes went out as well, attached to the end of the agenda. I will entertain a motion if anybody is ready to do that.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion. I guess I didn't ask for discussion on the last one to keep in, do we have any discussion? No. All right.
No.
I was wondering if there's any typos or corrections. I didn't see anything.
I did not see any. I admit I scanned it rather than read letter to letter this time. Yeah. Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Okay, communications. This is where we will give Mr. Gish and any city staff an opportunity to contribute.
Yeah, so just two kind of summer staffing updates. So Destiny Statina, who was the My Healthy Climate Corps, as we talked about in previous meetings, that position was eliminated through the federal government, but the state of Michigan and CEDM has picked up the funding there. So Destiny's returned to us. Destiny will continue to work on community events and programming and education. And then we have a new student here, Anar, from K College, a biology student who's working with me on invasive species and kind of conservation biology projects in the city. So expanded our capacity this summer.
What's our student friend's name?
Anar.
Anar?
Yes.
Cool, thank you.
Happy to have you with us.
Welcome.
Anything else or any questions for Justin at this point? All right, moving along, that takes us to public comments. While we check to see if there's anyone on the line, just put that out there for anyone in the audience has an opportunity. We will also make that available at the end of the meeting for anybody who wants to then. No phone calls. All right, let's keep moving. Reports. Let's see. We have, when we get to new business, we'll talk about members, because we had one resignation. But let's start with, in order, we have natural features. John, you have anything?
Sure, thank you. I had an opportunity to watch the YouTube. I did not make the time to be in attendance. There were basically two main focuses, two site reviews. One is the Kalamazoo Country Club, White's Lake development. They did make a comment that the staff does not support the site plan until there is additional justification for some proposed tree removals that fall underneath the NFP guidelines. They would like to see the utilities kind of avoid being installed at the slope of White's Lake, and they need a clear understanding of the slope remediation, i.e. the type of erosion blanket that will be used and some of the species of plants. Basically what this is doing is that they're going to be removing. I did have a chance to print out a few things. Unfortunately, I ran out of paper, so I'll pass these around. And basically what they're going to be removing is some existing hard surfaces and some existing buildings, which would be, I think is going to be on the southeast side, kind of where White's Lake is, converting that into a more of a native species environment on the slope, expanding the 18th hole or creating a new 18th hole, and also a comfort station. So this is going to be back up for review in front of the review board on their next meeting in June, which I believe is next week. Then the plans, the second item was adding a new, and I may have this a little bit incorrect, water filtration facility where the city has been dumping their leaves. All of these plans are under the city website, under future review of plans. It's site plans under review at the city. So I would encourage everybody to just take a few minutes and look at some of these things, because I personally do not have the capability of printing out large sets of plans. That's my report on the NFP today.
Do we have questions or comments? I need to find the article. I saw it this last month. I'll send it to everybody. I found an article, came through my news feed, that there's a new study that made a positive correlation between living near golf courses and cancer.
I saw that too.
Yeah. So it's just something to put on on people's radar to think about.
Is that related to herbicide use?
Yeah, herbicide, pesticide, fertilizer, all the heavy chemical use.
If you find that article, actually maybe I'll look it up, because I had the same thought, but I was like, oh, but I just saw that briefly online.
Yeah, it's not directly relevant to the NFP report, but it just, talking about the golf course did make me remember this is an issue that we should be aware of, at least, as an environmental issue.
And kind of my personal feelings is on that, is that that particular item, that topic, pesticides, herbicides, the impact, is not part of the natural features review board. And so I think as a committee, it's something maybe we could suggest having in addition to it, particularly with the, demise of pollinators, birds, coincides with some of the city activities in regards to no mow May, climate crisis, all of these things.
Absolutely. When we get to new business, let's bring that up and see where the discussion takes us.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Rita, you got here just in time. You want to give us an air and water quality report?
Yeah, a few updates about air quality. The Eagle comments were closed for the review of the Michigan study this past Monday, and so the 269 air quality team sent in some comments as we reviewed the report. And I can share those comments with you guys. I guess our main concerns are about spatial and temporal information and data because of the one monitor at the Mayor's Fairground. Although it is a $250,000 monitor and it is what they called for, we hold the belief that, well, also our data shows, that there needs to be more monitors placed, and we also are questioning the placement. The article stated that they place monitors if they are downwind from main sources of pollution, and a few others. I apologize, my Wi-Fi is not set up, so I can't get to my notes exactly at this moment, but I will continue trying. But we are concerned about the spatial and temporal data that is available. Last year in 2024, there was a report released by the EPA stating that there was X amount of good days as well as X amount of moderate days. And due to the 24-hour average that they are using, we are missing a lot of information that is critical for public health concerns and residents' health. Which includes the averaging period of about, what we looked at is about 1 hour to 8 hours. There is still pollutants in the air that read, that have the, unhealthy levels in the air. And so we are concerned that by averaging a 24-hour period, it is not adequate. It's not adequate. It doesn't protect our citizens and our residents. And that, yeah. That's a little bit about the averaging period that we are concerned about, that 24-hour average. We are also concerned about roadway air pollution. There are only 2 places in Michigan that have traffic and monitoring. And despite it being a larger city, traffic and roadway air pollution is it's everywhere. And so we are hoping to see more tracking. We are also concerned about the evidence that justifies the amount of monitors used based on population size. Based on our population size, we have 1 monitor, and we're concerned about that. But yes, we mainly made comments about the averaging period. And meeting the federal requirements does not give the state or local government spatial or temporal information. And just to go back to the why they placed monitors in certain areas, it states that most monitoring sites must be located to measure the highest pollutant concentration. Some monitoring sites may be located away from high pollution areas to determine background pollution concentrations. Others may measure impacts on visibility, plants, and animals. And so we are just curious and wondering why it wasn't placed in that area. We also have data, and I don't mind passing around my computer, but that shows the averaging periods. And on Nazareth and Patterson, monitors have exceeded levels which are in the unhealthy range on the AQI scale. And so if the monitor at the Mayor's Fairground did not pick up on that, that is also a concern of ours. And so that's our update, or the update about air quality. I, at this moment, do not have any updates about water quality. I will add that there is a Kickback and Breathe, a air quality related event that talks about research, data, and indoor home health related to air quality on June 25th. I also know that last time I shared a website for the 269 air quality team. It is now up and running. You'll be able to find out more information about what we are doing, as well as some asthma resources. Yeah.
A lot of information. Questions to start with? I like that you're identifying, so all the things you mentioned are really important. I've talked to some public health people who've raised similar concerns about the new plan for testing, air testing. I guess my question is, what do we do with that? If you were interested in putting together just the first steps, I'd be happy to contribute to it, some kind of a a plan that we could review and discuss and then potentially send to the city as a recommendation. I'd be happy to help you with that if you want to take the first shot at it.
Absolutely. I will let 269 Air Quality know, and we will get back to you next month about that. Thank you for volunteering.
And along the same lines, this is just something to put on people's, up there for people's attention. I got this as a notification from Eagle because I'm active in their odor reporting system. GPI has put in a permit to shut down one line and significantly increase production for another line, and they had to submit an air quality permit request with Eagle for that. So Eagle is reviewing that. There's still going to be some time before it's open for public comment, or I think more. But there is, for people who aren't familiar, MI Enviro. That is Eagle's page, and you can use that to look at information about what different companies are releasing, and to also track companies' history of enforcement and permit applications. And the MI Enviro portal also has, you can look at specific companies, and if you go to that for GPI, you can track this particular permit request. I don't know much about it yet. I just was alerted, and I'm watching for it before there's more information. Anything else on air and water quality?
Can you forward that email to me?
Yep, I'll send it to everyone on the email.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to wildlife. I believe that's Tressa and David, and we've had some more comments, and I've given a lot of thought to those. Let's see where we go with this.
Oh boy. I mean, really the only update I have is that I'm looking at like pest control places to see if they can give us some insight on how to deal with it. There's one place in particular that was Michiana, but it doesn't seem like like we kill groundhogs kind of place that I'm hoping to speak to. So really that's the best update I have. Still getting my post-baby feet.
David, anything to add? No. Okay, so we've gotten a bunch of emails, particularly from one resident concerned about deer and now turkeys as well.
Oh, yeah, I do remember the turkey.
Yeah. One, I know this has been in front of David and Tressa for some time. I just wanted to say, don't kill yourselves trying to come up with a solution. We are volunteers helping the city. It's not our responsibility to solve a very sticky situation. So if we can make recommendations, that's great, but don't feel you have some obligation to do that. The other thing I was noticing is in none of the commentary and pictures we've received have I seen any evidence of the resident trying to deter the animals. Some simple fencing, some of that, we've used it in lots of pollinator gardens that we've planted. It's this stuff that's a mix of garlic and pepper and completely non-toxic, but it works. I mean, after a couple heavy rains, you have to reapply it, but it does work. So before we go to any extreme measures, I think there should be some responsibility to try some very basic deterrence.
Justin, are there any more Kalamazoo environmental events that we're hosting coming up? Because I know last year we had someone come in to talk about deer. We could have someone talk about groundhogs.
here to this committee? Because the person who came about
I'm trying to remember the name. No, it was...
symposium?
Yes.
No, we're not having another one of those. I mean, we're tabling at every lunchtime live. We're meeting with neighborhood groups, but we don't have any plans to have another event like that. Currently, I mean, we could have the DNR come and I could ask him if he want to talk about groundhogs here, and then it would be recorded for posterity and available in perpetuity. But yeah, no events.
And then when you're talking about don't work too hard, are you talking about groundhogs and deer or groundhogs only or?
Well, I think that the simple deterrent measures will need to be tried for all before anything more, I don't know, extreme is implemented or experimented with.
Because I can tell you that the residential neighborhood stuff is, it is on.
Yeah, I'm leaning into a little bit more.
Sorry about that. So the residential question is one thing, and you're right, we get these calls in about people complaining about the problem, and it's presented. Really haven't had too much insight from them as to what they have or have not done as far as addressing that problem. But the one thing that I am kind of picking up is that the two large natural areas that we have, Kleinstuck and Asylum Lake, there are no people really that have come forward to address any of the issues, pro or con. So I've been looking around for some people that can come in with knowledge about biodiversity. And so we can get a bigger picture other than just people calling to say that, my hostas are gone. Like that. But to take a look at those large natural areas, because I know that there is an impact. I don't know if it's significant. If it is, but I'd like to find somebody that can come in and address that, just some neutral academic that can come in and talk about that. The summer seems to be kind of a hard time to get anybody lined up because it's summer.
Yeah.
And so, but I do have a couple of names of people from the university that, are looking at this kind of thing, and I hope that, and with your permission, I'll try to line them up, just come in and give a small presentation about general biodiversity impact of, and maybe it'll cover woodchucks also, or groundhogs. But I think it's going to be primarily deer that are having any kind of biodiversity impact. But again, that's kind of an ongoing thing where nobody was available for June, July, and I'm not sure about August yet. So, but yeah, I would like to start there is getting somebody to speak for these large areas that really, I doubt if anybody's going to come in and say anything about them unless we seek that out.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons that I was saying that we don't need to solve this because it's a systemic issue. We have a couple of large natural areas. We've got the Asylum Lake, we've got Kleinstuck, and if we look at where the deer issues, the complaints come from, it's in the neighborhoods surrounding those natural areas. And so as the city and developers, et cetera, remove all the other habitat, the golf course removed a ton of habitat, graphic packaging removed a ton of habitat. There's habitat being cut down all over the city. That means that we really only have 2 islands of habitat with neighborhoods surrounding them. And what's the wildlife going to do? It's going to go to the remaining habitat and concentrate every piece of wildlife we have left there, which is going to exacerbate the problem. I mean, it's not, it's a function of the loss of habitat as much as anything else, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true to an extent. I think we do have an overpopulation of deer because in addition to loss of habitat, we've lost predators. And, I mean, we all know what happened to the one wolf who happened to wander down. For those who don't know, they were shot. Someone thought it was a coyote. It was not. So, there probably is a serious impact on our remaining natural areas from the deer. It's just a question of who really runs that land and whose responsibility it is to manage that. But, yeah.
I'd like to add a little bit. I'm involved with a pretty diverse, well-educated environmental group that represents a vast diversity within the city of Kalamazoo. And one of the things that we've been talking about is basically is connecting the dots and looking at things from a holistic standpoint. And I think that's very important as we move forward with the climate issue. We're talking about pesticides, we're talking about golf courses, we're talking about a whole slew of different things. And how does the city policies, laws, and codes flow into that? We're in a new reality now. We're in 2025. A lot of these codes and policies and laws, very well written, very relevant to the time period in which they were written. But are some of them applicable to the current reality of where we're at today? And how can we look at those laws and policies and maybe tweak it, maybe add to it to help look at things from a holistic standpoint instead of an individual standpoint? I'm going to get on my soapbox here a little bit, but if you look at a lot of the city documents, there's very little information or conversation or education about anything really as it pertains to the issues that we're concerned about. And there's no support. And so as people are developing, creating, doing whatever they need to do, reducing the habitat, there's no guidelines. Their focus is very singular and very focused. And, are they looking at things holistically? And is the city encouraging them to do that? And I think that's one of our responsibilities with this committee, is to help encourage the city to start looking at things a little bit more holistically in regards to the environment and how it impacts all of us, because it does. So, thank you.
Yeah, I love the idea. Follow up with it.
I will.
I just wanted to point out that there are a bunch more pockets out there than just two, naming Asylum Lake and Kleinstock Preserve. I live in the West Douglas neighborhood. We have acres and acres of wood. The deer population is really big, and that part of that reason is it's connected to Ravine Road, and Ravine Road runs out. We also have the ball fields. North of Mazel, it's not uncommon to see deer running across a Westwood neighborhood or down as we go towards Western Michigan University. So there's lots of habitats that help support a deer population. And, it's cross municipality, so it's a big ask to say, well, let's solve it in Kalamazoo. My other comment is whatever solution might come along is not going to be popular, whatever it might be. I mean, there's going to be 50% for it and 50% against it. I mean, you can just tell by people's comments that, some places I walk where the sign says protect the wildlife in somebody's yard, and or a deer crossing, they want to highlight that, but it's a tough ask for sure.
Well, yeah, I think the deer issue in particular, personally, I think I'm a little more concerned at this point about the groundhog issue, because I think we've talked a lot about the deer, and the only other option I can see that we haven't explored is, is there a way to just make the general habitat unpleasant for deer to breed in? right? But we haven't heard that brought up from the DNR, we haven't heard that brought up from anybody else who could be considered an expert in the matter. So I'm kind of wondering if that's just so unbelievably difficult that no one thinks it's worth pursuing. Either that or I'm the most brilliant person in the world, obviously, and no one's thought of it before. Yeah, so I kind of feel like, we have resources online. To an extent, people have to start trying to pursue this on their own unless they want us to cull deer and try to do like a capture release program, which are both very expensive. There's just not a lot we can do. The groundhogs, I think we have less resources for, which is why I'm more interested in seeing what we can find to support that. I do think there's an interesting conversation among this, though, which is, when's the last time a wildlife survey was put together for our area, and when's the last time a good habitat survey was compiled for our area? I don't know if any of you know of one that I'm not thinking of, but it sounds like that's something that we could really use for the city going forward if we don't have one.
Maybe Justin, it seems like they set aside some money for a population.
No, you're being way too generous. I asked for money. Money's set aside. But yeah, we're looking at that. That's phase 2 of the urban deer management plan, is to figure out just how many deer are in. Maybe it's just the same 10 deer that everyone sees. But if we do, any type of science-based decisions would have to have science-backed data. So made an ask for that. These surveys are conducted with drones, so they're mildly invasive, or they're not invasive. Usually done in the winter when there's no leaf cover or tree cover. The ask is out there, and we'll know. But to my knowledge, there has not been any prior surveys like that. And then one more thing, because this comes up a lot too, the DNR will not let anyone move or transport deer, so that option is off the table completely. And sterilization would need approval from the DNR, and they are not inclined, because it's very traumatic for the deer. You have to tranquilize the deer, surgery. Deer have a good chance of getting hurt in that whole process, so they're not really thrilled about that either. I know, because those come up a lot. Those are slowly coming off the table as an option.
I think that's fair, and I think that's, like I said, aside from having a natural predator, which, I don't know, maybe people would be open to us reintroducing wolves in the Kalamazoo County area, because that's the last solution I can think of that's, I'm not even going to say really doable or plausible, but theoretically doable and plausible. Otherwise, there are limited options, and that is an unfortunate fact of the natural world that we share space with. There are going to be deer.
It's a complicated issue, and I think we can make we can continue to discuss this and maybe get to the point where we can make a recommendation or two. I think that's quite some ways down the road. There is a book that's pretty good. I don't necessarily agree with everything in it, but it is about a decade old. It's called Nature Wars. And so it's a historian who looked at how the wildlife population has rebounded while development has spread out into habitat, and how that's caused a great deal of conflict in the 21st century, especially. So it might be something in there that might inform what people are thinking about.
To the idea of some sort of wildlife survey or population survey, obviously there are the birders. I'm assuming they have a pretty good idea of what birds are here, and maybe not exact numbers, but how many. If you guys can think of any other organizations like that are likely to sort of self-survey data, we could compile a rough survey. It wouldn't be as effective or comprehensive as doing, looking at things via drone, but if we're just looking at what is the biodiversity in each given area, there might be a way to do that. So let me know.
Okay. Other comments on this topic before we move on to the Planning Commission? All right, Rachel?
I unfortunately do not have a update on the Planning Commission this month. I wasn't able to attend the meeting in person, and there was an issue with recording online, so I was not.
Thomas, any updates on the tree committee?
Oh, yeah, quite a few right at the moment. It has mostly to do with the aftermath of the May 18th storm. As you can well guess, there was extensive damage throughout western Michigan. The Department of Public Services has received in excess of 300 311 calls, and this is for either trees down or trees in the right-of-way or trees on the street. That doesn't count reports from first responders, utility workers, so they've been dealing with this every day of the week, 7 days a week since the storm happened. Their arborist, Brian LaBelle, has done approximately 1,000 site visits. He wanted to see personally where every tree was down or damaged and to help make decisions on how the trees could be harvested. He said as of this week, or last week, there's been 147 10-yard dumpsters of tree waste hauled away, and they're not done. They're continuing to work on that. He said the hardest hit neighborhoods were Millwood, Westnedge Hill, and the Vine neighborhood. East side, not as much. Oakwood, he also mentioned Oakwood had a bit of damage, but not much on the north side. So that's been their focus. They are going to be getting back to tree planting. As time allows, they're going to be in the east side neighborhood. That's part of their 2-year grant that they have. They have plans to do about 275 plantings up East Main, all throughout that neighborhood. And there will be a few selected tree removals, just so you don't plant new trees and have almost dead ones falling on top of it. So, yeah, that's the main business they've got going on. I know many of you probably had noticed that when Stadium Drive was redone, that there was extensive tree plantings along that between, what would that be, down by the stadium all the way up to, drawing a blank.
Howard Street.
So a lot of those died and have been replaced. It turns out they were really stumped on why they were dying, because they bought really good, the company that planted them hired a guy who essentially used a power washer and watered and cut holes in the root system in the dirt. So once Brian figured that out, was like, you got to stop that, dude. That is killing our trees. So they went back to the contractor, and all those trees have been replaced with a new system for watering, obviously. Gentle watering, but, regular watering as well. So they're more optimistic this time around than after the first round. That's all I have.
I have one question. When the city plants the trees, is there any, I'm assuming most of those trees are planted along between the curb line and the city sidewalk? And
that's correct.
Due to the extensive nature of the plantings, is there any residential education in regards to, hey, you ought to water these things?
No, not really. There are some neighborhoods that may, or block by block, take an initiative to be what we say tree tenders, if you will, caretakers. The city, their method is the company that they hire to plant and mulch is responsible for watering for the first 2 years. So they follow the water, they follow the weather patterns.
Okay.
And then they'll just send a big tank truck out, and they'll go around all the recent plantings and water them like every month on into September or October, depending on the weather.
Thank you.
It would be great if there were like, hey, adopt this tree in your front yard. It's ideally, new trees could use to be, depending on, the amount of rainfall, could be used to be watered every week.
Absolutely.
Just a little bit, a trickle for about an hour. If you turn your hose on, a stream of about the size of a pencil.
Yep.
For about an hour, and that just slowly trickles down and helps those roots get going.
Thank you.
Yeah, water is the reason most new plantings don't make it. My wife and I plant a lot of trees in a couple of areas in our neighborhood, and we've kept them alive as long as we get there once a week, and just about 3 gallons of water, and that's enough to keep them going. Yeah. So we have to carry the water to them because there's no
hose out.
Yeah. Okay, good. Moving forward, let's see. Trees. ALPA. David.
Meetings last week, basically, not too much, there's no new business, there's been no applications to use the area for education or any other purpose. The water levels are extremely low right now, but it's within the norms, so they're not too excited about that. The beaver deceiver is being somewhat improved to handle when the water does get higher. And then the other major thing they did is they discussed again the chloride capture project, and largely addressed some questions about the funding stream of that, and if there's going to be any kind of money coming back to the council. And basically the answer is maybe, but don't count on it, because everything. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting this thing. Look at my phone. The funding, there probably will be nothing coming back, but there may be some long-term. I still think there's some questions to be asked about intellectual property, but the project seems to be nascent enough that there's still things being ironed out. Nobody seems to be too worked up about it, at least at this point. But otherwise, not too much exciting going on at Asylum Lake.
Okay. Questions? Okay, then that takes us to Watershed Council, which did not meet this last month, Odor Task Force, which did not meet this last quarter, and jumping all the way down to the Waste Task Force, which now, Stephen, you're on your own.
Grazie. So, a couple of things that I'll just go over. I'll save the big one for a few minutes. So, just a couple of things that the waste group has been working on. Over the last month, they collected about 1,600 tires, which is part of their regular practice, and kudos to them. It matches what they did last year. So that's really good. Fewer tires, fewer, right, mosquitoes and everything else that we claim not to like. They're doing several pilots on composting. One of the things that I had noticed is that it's not yet in Recycle Coach, where they will direct people. Like where I live, we don't have that, but we could go to someplace if we knew. So they're working now with the vendor to prepare, and so there's more specificity within the app, so people could go and contribute their compost materials if they choose. Interesting thing is that there are interns that are collecting waste data during the summer, during a lot of public events. Don't really know where that's headed right now, but they're at Lunchtime Live, the farmers market, and they're just collecting the data that the city is going to be using to be able to help it, further down the road. So I wanted to just keep you informed of that. The EPS phone recycling, the next event is July 26th. I know it's way out there, but I just want to put that into everybody's minds as we're coming up to that. And then at each of the meetings, I'm going to be bringing up this particular topic that we discussed next time, and it's the next cycle partnership that currently the city is going through. So the city has been accepted into the program. I forget, Justin, the date, but I know Justin, one of his peers, Chris, Deputy Director Johnson, as well as Wendy, who's one of the managers, are going to Dearborn in order to attend a boot camp. And the intent of the boot camp is to help educate that core group, because what they will need to do is at some point, hopefully by September or October, they're going to have a proposal for the city that they need to present, and because obviously anything that we want to do is going to require some funding to be able to do it. Now, just a little bit that I know about this, it sounds like it's pretty cool. So at the end, for instance, one of the things that they're considering as part of their proposal is having a recycle super center. So instead of having discrete different events that occur throughout the year, you would have this one place where you wouldn't have to hold on to your stuff for the different quarterly events. So that's just an example of something they're considering. So obviously the challenges are going, the big obvious one is funding, and then the other one would be, where do you put it? So, but all these will be worked out by, the city, and their intent is to provide a proposal to the ECC as well as to the City Commission around the fall timeframe. So that's what I have. Any questions?
Can you give me the date on that EPS recycling again?
July 26th.
Is that also e-waste, or is that?
It's electronics, it's dental products, things that you don't use for that. Let's see, did I put down textiles? I think it's something, so.
That's new. Good.
Yeah.
No textiles.
Look, that's right, thank you.
No, yeah, it's fine. Textiles are one of the items that we're looking at for the next cycle piece too, just figuring out if there's an option there. Yeah.
And there's also document shredding.
Okay.
If you need that.
And I'm sorry, what date and where at?
July 26th.
Okay.
And if I understand correctly, correct me, it's the Mayor's Riverfront Park area where they'll have trailers there and volunteers.
Yeah, baseball stadium
All day?
parking lot. Yeah.
All day?
No, it's from, I think, 10 to 2. I can check the times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Rock on.
All right, thank you. To native species and urban landscape.
Yeah, so I've been trying to think about how the subcommittee can help drive Buzz in the Zoo's momentum, and knowing Destiny is back with us now, definitely can reach out to her to collaborate some more. I've just been researching what other cities have in terms of programs or information online. Looked at Ann Arbor. They just have a ton of good resources on their city's website page, and we have some as well. But they even go so far as like having where you can buy native plants and things like that. So looking into maybe compiling some of that information, seeing if we can add that as well, just to give some more resources to people. Otherwise, just still kind of brainstorming how this subcommittee could best be used.
Very good. Questions? All right, that takes us to picking up on things that are unfinished business. There's 2 items on here which are connected, draft bylaws and the number of seats on our committee. We had a member resign before tonight's meeting, so we are down. I think we have 2 open seats under our current bylaws number, which is 9. So if anybody knows people who are interested, we do have have a couple of seats available. But with that said, to the current, so the ordinance that created the ECC does specify 11 members is the size of the committee. We had a short discussion about that last month, and it seemed to be the consensus that that is an exceptionally high number. Since I've been on the committee, which has been some time, the number has been 9, and we have almost never had 9 members. So what are people's thoughts on, because if we want to have a number other than 9, we will have to request the city commission, or sorry, other than 11, we'll have to request the city commission to make a change to the ordinance. So we might want to consider the bylaws in case there's any other ordinance changes that we want to request to package them together. But let's start with the number of seats that we think is appropriate.
I mean, I think 9 makes more sense. I think if we wanted, we could go so far as like 9 members plus up to 2 non-voting members, because we do have that as an option, but it's a pain, but I think 11 is too many. You're right, we've never had it.
I would agree with that.
Before we go, I just want to keep non-voting members as a separate discussion. Because I think that's worthy of so.
I was just going to say that I agree just from, I mean, my limited time here. I feel like we get an influx of members and then immediately like something happens and like, you know, things come up, and it is a volunteer committee, so we have a lot of transitions. So I think 9 makes more sense.
I would agree with that. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just to be thorough, does anybody think we should have fewer than 9 members?
No.
No.
And I just wanted to add to that, there's 9 chairs up here, so that's why.
Yeah.
Good point.
Though that is a relatively recent development. I don't know if it's been maybe about a year we've been meeting here. We used to meet in the community room, which is just like a conference table. Yeah. So, but yeah, when we had, at one point, I think we might have had a 10th member on paper, and we were a little worried, and Justin pointed out, well, we've never had everybody show up once, so. All right, so I think we're all in agreement. Go ahead, Thomas.
Just to be clear, we would need to ask the city commission for permission to reduce to 11.
If we want,
I mean, to 9.
right, if we wanted to make that formal, to make that the size of the committee, yes, we would have to. There's also the discussion of, do we need to set that, limit that firmly? We do need to change it in some way, though, because the current ordinance says that the ECC consists of 11 members. Mm-hmm. And so I think that puts us in a real bind when we don't have 11 members. On paper, that's what we're supposed to have.
We could say no more than 11 members. We could say no more than 11, no less than 9.
The language I put in the suggestion is just no more than 9. So that would cap us at 9, but we could still function as a committee with a fewer number. Because I'm worried that if we happen to fall into a particularly contentious relationship with the commission, I don't see that happening, but if it were to happen, they could say, you don't have 11 members, you're not a valid committee, you don't get to meet. Because our bylaws say we have 11 members.
Yeah.
So we can hold that as a generally agreed upon thing, and we move forward. a similar thing with the associate members. This has always been an option as long as I can remember. It's in the current bylaws, which were last revised in 2017. It's in the proposed 2025 bylaws. We've never had an associate member, in my experience. It doesn't mean we don't have a need for it, but I just wonder if there's a need for that in the bylaws. I don't feel that it has to go. I just don't think that it serves any particular purpose.
I think we should leave it in, but I also think it's a question of what do we see this committee looking like? Okay, what do we see the committee looking like in the future? Because if we take on additional projects, it could be nice to have extra hands, even if they're not voting hands. So I don't think it hurts to leave it in. I think to your point, you know, if we have, like, I don't want to have an associate member and then realize we can't. But I think, Dave, I think you leaned forward as well. Did you have a thought?
No. No, I was just going to say there's no harm in leaving it in. I don't see it, but.
I agree with Tressa that there's no harm as is. If there were to, you know, I remember we had one person who applied to the commission, and then it turned out that she wasn't a City of Kalamazoo resident, and we offered the possibility of I don't even know if that's allowed because that might be required under the bylaws as well to be a city resident. But I think that it just leaves it open in case, like you were saying, additional resources. Someone might come along and say, well, maybe I can't attend all the meetings, but I could help with a specific topic.
Yeah, I don't see, I'm looking for it. Off the top of my, just quick scan, I can't see qualifications for associate members, but I think that's a good way to think about it. We did have, you're right, we did have that come up once where the person never came back, but we did offer that was a way that she could join the committee as an associate member.
I do believe that was the result of checking into the bylaws.
So I think we're kind of agreed that there's no harm in keeping associate members on there.
Right.
How do people want to handle discussion of bylaws further? I don't want to belabor the point and make the whole meeting about this. I sent out some suggestions. We can talk about suggestions. We can do some commentary, some suggestions, some communication via email. We can pick this back up next time. What would people like to do?
I do have one point of confusion. If I go back and recall the conversation that the city attorney had, there was some confusion in regards to what represented a quorum or a majority. He was kind of contradicting what I'm believing I have read within the existing bylaws. I think his position, the city's position, was that a majority was a number that was a majority of 11.
Right, so the 2017 version of the bylaws indicates that a quorum is a majority of the members, and that's all it says.
Member of the 11 members being.
It does not. It does.
11.
It says a majority. So the attorney really wanted us to have a solid number. And one reason for that was to have a set number for a quorum.
Yeah, I do believe that is the issue that came up, because it would appear that if we have 9 people regularly, but the quorum is 6, you know, that there could be plenty of times that we won't be able to conduct any business.
I mean, I think we would, if we change the number of people who have to be here
like if we change the number of sitting members to 9, then we would change the number to get a quorum. But I know he really wants it as a solid number. I think we should change the language to no more than 9, and I think we should say a majority of the sitting members. Otherwise, it's too concrete for me for a committee that does seem to have a lot of transition.
So what I did in the recommendations I sent was copied the 2017 language over the 2025 proposed language. And that says a majority of the members constitutes a quorum of the members for all purposes. What the attorney said, which is an interesting thought, is that let's say our number of people on the committee is 9. That means a quorum is 5. If the quorum is 5, the attorneys seem to imply that a majority of vote, which requires a majority to pass, would require all 5 people present to vote in favor, because that's a majority of the committee.
Yes.
That would be a majority if it constitutes that there was 9 members.
Right.
And, I'm not an attorney, but I've had plenty of legal opportunities, and if their definition of member is 11 members, can they go back from a legal standpoint and cross-reference member to the numeric of 11 instead of 9? That would be on how...
Yeah, I think the question, where the problem arises is, let's just stick with 9. We have a quorum of 5 people in this situation. 5 people show up. We have a contentious vote. 3 people vote in favor, 2 people vote against. That happens to be a majority of the people present, but it's not a majority of the committee, and as the attorney presented it, that motion would not pass.
Correct. That has been my experience working with boards and meetings is, you have a quorum so that if the quorum all agrees, then it would pass. But if one person does not, then you would either say it doesn't pass, or you could say, I think you can say that you can table the discussion until you have all of the members. So it wouldn't be a hard no, it's just it didn't pass today.
I apologize if I'm interrupting this conversation because I have a question. Are here today? Is this the entire now? There's 8 people? Is that?
I think this is...
No, Damaris resigned and Justin resigned.
She resigned right before last month when you weren't able to attend. Yeah. And Justin just resigned right before today. So yes, this is currently the full committee.
If we had 8 members, how would that quorum work? Because unless...
It would still be 5.
It'll be 5. Thank you. Thank you.
It would still be 5, but let's say one more of us resigned. If we keep the quorum as a majority, then the quorum is 4. Because we'd have 7 people. That's why I prefer to say that the quorum is a majority rather than to say a quorum is a set number.
Yeah, heaven forbid we only have like 3 members for some reason. Yeah.
Because if we said the quorum has to be a set number, then it's possible if we had a couple of resignations and we hadn't filled those seats, we wouldn't be able to conduct any business.
Yeah, I get what the lawyer is saying, but I don't think what he's saying is very practical, so unless we're required by the city to do it for some reason, personally I feel like, it should just say a majority, no more than 9 voting members.
Rather than to continue further, we absolutely can, but I feel like we've gotten an agreement that we will recommend that the quorum should be a majority of the members of the full committee. rather than a specific number.
And then we can see what feedback we get.
Right, the city commission could always reject the changes that we make.
Yeah, we should probably do some formal votes on this, too.
Yeah, I think,
We may want to do it as a package. I don't know.
yeah, let's kind of discuss things through and make sure. I'd prefer to see if we have, if there's any points of,
Contention?
I'm not going to use such a strong word. I'll say conflict of opinion.
I like that, okay, conflict of opinion.
Okay, so we've got quorum, we've got members, we've got associate members, all that is pretty solid. Other things that people want to raise to discuss today, let me just pull my agenda back up. I want to make sure. We do have one new business item, so I'm going to jump out of order. Please beg your pardon on this. Justin, before he resigned, Justin was vice chair. Mm-hmm. So that means that we should fill that position. We can function without it, but if I miss a meeting, then somebody has to be here to run it. We don't need a nomination or so today. If somebody wants to step up, that would be fantastic. If not, I would, because it was sprung on us right before the meeting, I would like to at least have an election for vice chair next month if no one is ready to step up today.
Let's move it to next month.
Okay. Regan?
I will second that motion.
Okay, excellent. So that's on our agenda for next month. We'll select a new vice chair. Okay, so back to bylaws. We have public comments, commissioner comments left here. And it looks like it just turned into the apocalypse outside.
We should go home, probably.
So I will, there are a few other changes that I have made that potentially could be more discussion inspiring. So would we like to continue that or pick that up next month? Because there's no time limit on we don't have to have these done right away.
I'm going to say next month, only because of not good.
Yeah, I would definitely make that a proposal because I'm a little concerned. If any of you have walked, it's going to be a hell of a walk home.
Yeah, if you walked, we can give you a ride.
So first, do we have anybody who is committed to finishing the bylaws discussion this month? Okay, then I don't know that we need a formal proposal for that, but that's an agenda item for next month. Justin, if you can make sure we'll pick up the bylaws discussion again. All right, with that allows us to move on. And new business, we just hit that. Public comments. No one in the audience is stepping up to make a comment. Do we have anybody on the line? We do not. Okay. We'd love to hear from the public, but we are eager to get out of here today. So any commissioner comments? We'll start on the other end. Stephen, do you want to take first opportunity?
No comment. Thank you.
No comment.
No comment.
All right, keep it going.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
Always have an interest in trees. I just wanted to mention that, spring has the flowering trees have kind of faded out, but there's one that I notice in my neighborhood that's really beautiful right now, and I'm drawing a blank on the name. It's the catalpa tree that has gorgeous orchid-like flowers if you can get close enough to see it. Just lovely. Thank you.
They are beautiful, and they're an amazing tree because they have a native range that's all the way from the Caribbean up into like the maritime provinces of Canada. Yeah. Though they are on the city's do not plant list, they're a native species, but they are very, very aggressive. So they will take over. All right, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make it.
We have support?
I second it.
Okay, we're out.
Stay safe out there.
Yeah, does anyone need a ride home?